Okay, welcome back to the third lesson in the geometry topic. In this lesson, we're going to be looking at the angle sum of quadrilaterals. So much like the last lesson, which was the angle sum of triangles, this time now we're looking at quadrilaterals. If you remember back to the first part, the first lesson in this topic, we learnt that quadrilaterals are four-sided polygons. So, you can guess every question. We're pretty much doing the same thing we did in the last one, but this time for four-sided polygons. All right. Now, the thing you're going to need to remember, the angle sum of a quadrilateral is 360 degrees. So the triangle's 180, the quadrilateral is 360. If you're starting to get nervous about, well, am I going to have to remember, the pentagon, the hexagon, the heptagon, the nonagon, right up to the decagon? No, I'm going to teach you a nice, quick, easy way where you can actually get these angle sums without having to memorize all of them. That's going to be, I believe, our next lesson, funnily enough. So super cool, very fun lesson. But yeah, I'll show you a nice, easy way. You won't have to remember all of them. Most people typically remember the triangle 180 and the quadrilateral 360 because they're the two most common. But realistically, as long as you remember the triangle, you're kind of okay. But anyway, I'm just going to assume that, at least for this lesson, that you're going to remember the angle sum, right? What all of the angles add up to for a quadrilateral is 360. Again, here, just like we did in the last lesson, I've drawn up a very random quadrilateral, and I measured the angles. Here they are. We had a couple 90-degree angles. It doesn't have to be. It just happened to be the random quadrilateral I drew. This was 105. The other angle's 75. Here we go, quadrilateral. It's got four sides. Obviously, it has four angles. If you add up those four angles, whether you type it in the calculator or do it by yourself, it's not a coincidence. It actually adds up to 360 degrees. And again, you don't need to believe your maths teacher. You can try and verify this yourself. Create some of your own quadrilaterals. Make the angles as convoluted as you want. And measure them up. If you've got yourself a protractor and a ruler, you can do this. Create a quadrilateral, measure up the angles. When you add them together, it should actually equal 360 degrees. If it doesn't, either, the entire world of mathematics is not true, or potentially, maybe you just measured the angle wrong. I'm not totally sure, but you can definitely verify these things yourself. You don't just have to believe and take my word for it. I certainly don't want you to do that. But anyway, we'll just do the one and we get straight on to the questions now, because just like the triangle, you can do as many as you want. If it's a four-sided polygon, the four angles will add up to 360. And that's the geometry we're going to need for these questions. So again, just like the triangle, here we're trying to find the value of x. But in this case, it's a quadrilateral. Since it's a quadrilateral, using our geometry skills here, we know there's four angles, and those four angles, x plus 110 plus 100 plus 80, these four angles, 1, 2, 3, 4, will all add up and equal 360 degrees. That is the angle sum of a quadrilateral. So we've used our geometry, the stuff that is the focus for today, the angle sum of a quadrilateral is 360, to create an equation. We now have our equation. Before we rush ahead and solve it, we'll take just a quick moment just to simplify the equation. So in this case, how many x's do we have? We've just got the one lot of x. But here we've got 110 plus 100 plus 80. Why keep them separate? We're just going to combine them into one number, make it easier to solve. So in this case, we have 290, and it's going to be equal to 360. All right, so we haven't solved yet. We just simplified it down. We rewrote the equation simplified. And now that we've done that, now we're going to go ahead and solve. So in this case, solve the equation just like we always do. Use our inverse operations. To find x, we need to get rid of this plus 290. We're going to use the inverse, like the opposite. So to get rid of a positive 290, we're going to need to minus. So you're going to go 360, take away 290, and you're going to end up discovering the value of x, 70 degrees. That was the size of this angle here, 70 degrees. All right, first one done. All right, looking on to the second one, again, it looks a bit weird, but you can see there's 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 4 sides here. It's a quadrilateral, and that means the 4 angles are going to add up to 360. You may feel like, well, do I need to do anything special here? Because this angle is clearly obtuse. It's a big, massive, it's actually a reflex. What am I talking? It's a reflex angle, right? Really big angle. You don't need to do anything different. Just trust the method, do what we always do, and it will work out. Since it's a quadrilateral, the 4 angles will add up to 360. So let's write that out. This angle here, plus this one, plus this one, plus 30 degrees, the 4 angles will add up and equal, because it's a quadrilateral, it'll always equal 360 degrees, always. So we've just used our geometry to create an equation. I'm going to go ahead and solve it just like we have been throughout the whole time. What is that, 105? And now we go ahead and solve to get our value of x. So to get rid of the 105, we're going to take away 360, take away 105, is that 255 degrees. That angle was absolutely massive. There it is there, 255 degrees, that's the value of the x. Obviously that arrow I put at the end is not necessary. This is the line here you would need for your marks in your exams. All right, so this one here, now we've moved on to a quadrilateral where there are 2 angles that are unknown. They happen to be the same size though, so I'm not thinking this will be too challenging here. Please note the square down the bottom, this bottom left, that's a symbol for a right angle. So I'm just going to put it in, hey, that's a 90-degree angle. Some people just like completely forget to put it in because there's no number there, but that angle is 90 degrees, right? He does exist. All right, so we've got 4 angles. It's going to add up to 360 because angle sum. Let's write it out. This angle here, x plus the next angle, x plus the 90 degrees, plus the 120. These 4 angles, 1, 2, 3, 4, the 4 angles are going to add up and equal 360 degrees. All right, we've got our equation. We're now going to simplify it. How many x's do we have? We have 2 lots of x. The 90 plus 120, why keep them separate? I'm going to combine them, simplify this down. That's just 210. And it's still equal to 360 degrees. So we've created our equation, we've simplified it down. Now it's time for some solving. All right, so I'm going to get rid of this plus 210 by minusing. So 360 minus the 210 should end up with 150 degrees there. We haven't got the value of x yet though. We've got the value of 2x. Remember, 2x is 2 lots of x. So to get rid of a times by 2, we're going to need to divide. So 150 divided by 2, and that'll give us the value of x. All right, final example is our challenge example. Again, we've got this quadrilateral, so we know what the 4 angles will add up to. But as it is, we don't know the value of any of those angles. So every single angle is unknown to us, but there's one thing we know. We know what they should all add up to. So we're going to start with that. We're using our geometry here to create an equation. All right, I'll start with the x. X plus x take away 20 plus x take away 30 plus an x take away 30, right? It may look super confusing here, but there's 1, 2, 3, 4. All I've done is just added these 4 angles together because we know the 4 angles will add up and equal 360 degrees. So that's our equation. I'm not going to solve it yet because, hey, it looks super complicated as it is. If I take a moment to simplify it, hopefully it'll start looking a little bit more like a normal equation that we are used to seeing. All right, so how many x's do I have in total? So there's x plus x plus x plus x. We have in total 4 lots of x. Now looking at the numbers, I've got to take away 20. Here, I'll circle them here so you know what I'm talking about. We've got a minus 20, or take away 20. Take away another 30. Take away another 30. So if you start at minus 20, you go down another 30, you get to minus 50, go down another 30, you end up down at minus 80. And it's still equal to 360 degrees. All right, so I haven't solved anything. I just collected them together, simplified it down. Now we're going to go ahead and solve. I need to get rid of this take away 80. How do you get rid of a minus 80? Yeah, that's right. We're going to add 80. So we're going to go 360 plus 80. So that's going to take us up to 440. And from here, we got 4 lots of x is equal to 440. To find x, we're going to divide by 4. So 440 divided by 4, and you end up with 110 degrees. That's the value of x. Now, going back to the question, I was so tempted just to skip on then. But I did go back to the question. It does say find the size of each angle. Unfortunately, we have only the size of one of the angles, although I guess the good news is that was the hardest one to find. From here, the other 3 will be pretty basic. The one directly below is x take away 20. You know, we know what x is. It's 110. So 110 take away 20. This was a 90-degree angle down there. The next one along, going clockwise around, this is x take away 30. So again, x, right, this was the whole purpose. X was 110. Knowing what x is allows us to find this. It's just 110 take away 30. That's an 80-degree angle there. And this one up here is also 110 take away 30. So we have found the size of each of the angles. I chose to write the angles up in the spots where they belong, although if you wanted to, there'd be nothing wrong with you writing, you know, the 4 missing angles just below here if you wanted. I guess it's personal preference. As far as someone marking the exam, as long as they can see those 4 angles, they're going to know what you're referring to and you're going to be getting your marks for it. All right, so now it's your turn. So activity 4 for this topic. Again, just like the examples we've been doing for this lesson and for previous activities, I'll get you to pause the video, go through copying these questions, answer them as best you can. Once you've got answers for all the 4 questions, and again, noting it wants the size of any missing angles. Some of them only have 1 missing angle, but I can see the bottom one, there's a couple missing angles. So make sure you write down the size of all the missing angles there. Once you have answers for all, unpause the video to get the solutions. Make sure you're in the right path. All right, so hopefully you've answered the questions now, and you just wanted to make sure you've done it correct. So for the first one here, you should have ended up with x plus 280 is equal to 360 as an equation once it was solved. And then again, once you go ahead and solve that equation, you should have went 360 minus the 280, giving you 80 degrees for the first one. Sorry, excuse me. All right, the next one down. So looking at this one here, you should have ended up with, in this case, x plus what would be 300 is equal to 360 as your equation once it was simplified. Solving the equation, x should have ended up being 60 degrees. That should have been your answer for the second one. Okay, this third one here, so the one that sort of looks like an arrowhead, it looks harder, but it was no harder than the first two, really. There's only one missing angle. Writing out your equation, you should have ended up with, once it was simplified, x plus 105 is equal to 360. Solving that equation, you should have ended up having to go 360, take away the 105, leaving you with 255 degrees. That looks super familiar. That's actually the same size as we got for the other arrowhead, although the other three angles were different sized. Crazy coincidence. Definitely not planned. All right, and for your final one, this one here, this one's a little bit more interesting. You should have ended up with 3 lots of x in total, plus, what is that, 175, which is equal to 360. Then you would have needed to have gone 360, take away 175. So from that point, you would have ended up with 185 degrees. Hang on, sorry, I'm going to cough again. And final step, you're going to divide that by 3. This one here, it doesn't divide through particularly nicely. You're going to end up with, if you type it in your calculator, you may have got a fraction, or it may have given you to you as a decimal. I know most students prefer to leave their answer as a decimal because it makes a bit more sense to them, at which point I'm pretty sure it's 60, so 1 point, would have been 6 repeater, just 6 is going right through to the end. The final 6 on your calculator would have rounded up to a 7, but 61.6 repeater, or if you wanted to just do it to the nearest degree, x is approximately 62 degrees. And if I was to use that rounded answer, we can see, hey, this one here was, well, just under 62 degrees, but we'll say 62 degrees, that's near enough. And the angle up here is 2 lots of x, so 2 lots of 62 should have ended up with 124 degrees for that one there. Or if you left it at 61.6 repeater, times that by 2, leave it as a decimal, you end up with more accuracy with your answer, which is cool. But this is a high school lesson, so rounding to nearest degree is okay, especially since the question didn't say what to round to. All right, hopefully that made sense, and everything's going really good. If you did struggle with any of those, please feel free to go back, relook at the examples, find other videos, look through your textbook, do whatever you need to do. Feel free to, send questions to myself. I'll help the best I can, and go back and redo the questions if you need to. All right, thanks heaps and best of luck with your work. I'll see you for part 4 of geometry.